be brave to
Hmm.
ask the things that seem scary and to go through the things that seem scary. The scary thing is where your breakthrough is. As hard as that is, sit with it. It's going to be okay.
You're listening to Get Your Marriage On, the fun and spicy podcast bringing you new tools and fresh ideas so that you can be the sexiest couple you know.
This episode is for any couple that has struggled with feelings of shame about bodies or sexuality and has experienced a lot of conflict in their marriage around sexual differences. I am so grateful that my friends Jan Marie and Andrew Cannon were willing to come on this podcast to share their story. They were nervous and are private people, so it's a big deal for them to be open and vulnerable. But they're doing this in hopes that their story will inspire you and bless some listener out there to encourage them in their marriage. I met Jan Marie and Andrew at the marriage retreat we did last October. In fact, they celebrated their 22nd wedding anniversary at the event. They've been through a lot of turmoil around sex and intimacy in their marriage together, which you'll get to hear. And you'll also get to hear the tipping point when they found healing and hope in their marriage. I also want to make a plug for marriage retreats. There's something special that happens when both of you attend a retreat to refresh and recharge your relationship. It's also time to get on the same page and really connect in new ways without a lot of everyday distractions. Besides, you get to meet other really cool people and learn from great marriage coaches too. Our next marriage retreat is coming up on March 23rd, and you'll want to get on the waiting list to be the first to hear about the details because chances are it's going to sell out quick. You can join the waiting list by tapping on the link in the episode description below or by going to getyourmarriageon.com and click on Marriage Retreat at the top. Jan Marie and Andrew, welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Hi, thanks for having us on.
So I want to hear about how the two of you met.
Okay, so spring of 2000s.
Okay.
It was May. The blossoms were on the trees.
Bees are buzzing.
The bees were buzzing. And
love was in the air.
Love was in the
Not
air.
quite. It was getting close. It's getting close.
So I had been going to visit a friend, but all the flights were canceled. So instead, I went to a wedding reception of somebody that I knew. And while I was there, I ran into a junior high teacher that I'd had. So I was 25 by this point and single.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a really fun conversation, caught up, met his family. And he said there was someone really special for me.
Okay.
So that's at the link. And so a week later, I got a call from someone asking me on a blind date.
Okay.
And that was Andrew's brother. So I have the theory that every love story has some element of surprise. However you find your beloved, there's some surprising element to it. So our blind date.
Our neighbor came to us and said, one of you should ask this girl out. She's really nice. My brother was much braver than I was. And he called her and we went up to a concert and I was along for the ride. I was driving the car with a bunch of other people in the car.
Gotcha.
And
there were three couples.
We went up to a concert and I was kind of watching in the rear mirror the whole time. As she talked to my brother. And I thought, she looks nice. So I wished I was talking with her because I didn't really have a date. I had somebody in the passenger seat, but I didn't have a date.
Gotcha.
You thought
I thought it was three couples.
Yeah.
But it was really just a group activity and his brother and I were the only ones on a date.
Let's see.
But I didn't know it.
We got up there and she knew the people in the concert.
Gotcha.
So that was super fun.
She knew all the same friends that we knew, which was different ways around. And then afterwards, we took her home and I went to my brother and I said, did you have a good time? He said, yeah, it was fine. He said, do you think you'll ask her out again? I said, no, probably not.
Yes.
when he dropped me off at the doorstep, he said that he would probably call me next week. So when the call came from Andrew, that took me by surprise. That's younger brother. Is that okay? I don't know if that's okay to go out with a brother.
I asked him and he said it was fine. So
it was all good.
That's awesome.
So our first date, we doubled with Andrew's brother and his now blind date.
Gotcha.
It was super fun. We put faces on fruit. So we did a pear and like a strawberry for the nose and a slice of apple, long thin slice for a hat, like a fruit hat. It was so much fun.
It's like Mr. Potato Head, but using a pear.
Exactly. And that was at Andrew's sister's suggestion. And so I fell in love with Andrew.
That is so cool.
And I was surprised when she walked in because the sunlight was coming in sideways through my parents' house. And I didn't realize yes, she has cool eyes. Yeah, really, but they're kind of like a solar eclipse.
Oh, nice.
Brown in the middle and green towards the outside. It's fun. And I noticed those.
Nice. And then you're married how much later? Since this
6 months.
Yeah.
6 months. Nice.
So we got engaged after 3 months of dating. We dated all summer. I would go to his family's house and kind of a standing invitation for dinner. So most evenings we had dinner and then we'd go walking after dinner. And that's when I got to know the family. I realized my comfort zone was being in the kitchen chopping vegetables for my mother-in-law. Like, give me a job to do, I'm a little nervous. Just tell me what to do.
Gotcha.
And she got introduced to our family encyclopedias that we had in the room since I was growing up. If we ever wanted to look anything up, there were encyclopedias at the kitchen table. One day,
mulberry color.
Yeah, one day we looked up colors and ended up chasing it through a whole circle of this is warmer and redder than wine red, but cooler and grayer than pomegranate. So we have to go look at pomegranate and see what pomegranate color is. Yeah. So we just went on this whole color.
So his dad would stop eating dinner, turn around, grab the encyclopedia, look it up, and we'd read through it. We'd all learn together at the table.
Now we use smartphones and Wikipedia. Still the same thing happening.
That's right. Because I think Google on my phone has settled many a debates around the dinner table. Now, but you had that before that with the encyclopedias. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, fast forward a few years in your marriage, and what are some of the frustrations or difficulties you ran into in your intimate life, in your sexual relationship in your marriage?
You don't have to fast forward that far.
Okay.
We had a tough time. And I think it's pretty safe to say that the shame that we learned around sexuality from really early on had a huge impact on both of us.
Gotcha. This is inherited from your probably families of origin?
Yeah.
And maybe culture, religious culture, and so on. Okay.
Yes, very much so.
Great. Well, you're not unique.
No. I'm not going to speak of Jen Marie here, but I know as a teenager, I had very strong sexual feelings, really powerful, and no validation of that.
You're
Nothing
right.
said, hey, this is normal, this is okay, this is fine.
Because no one talked about it. At least not in a positive light.
A little bit, yeah.
Right.
Like before I even really knew what masturbation was, my mom brought it up once and said it's not so great. And I said, well, okay, I guess sure, I won't do it. And boy, did that set me up for a miserable teenage experience because of course I did. But
and every time there's shame attached with it. Like good people don't do this or whatever the thought is. Okay.
I was on with that all through my mission and all through leading up to getting married. And so the LDS mission, I just thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't go because I don't have control of this. I'm not settled. It's not resolved. I haven't fixed my sexuality. I don't know.
Gotcha.
That kind of feeling. And then almost called off the wedding because I was feeling like, oh, I'm not ready. I'm not in a good place. And
All about sexual shame in general, or okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I think my family's already kind of prone to perfectionism and depression and anxiety. But
Mhm.
I really do feel like this led to, for me, a significant period of severe depression and anxiety.
Gotcha. Leading up to the wedding or even
But
after marriage?
after marriage and for a decade and a half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, prone to depression for other reasons too. But
Mm-hmm.
I think sexuality was a huge aspect of really severe depression and anxiety.
Mm.
And so it made it hard because I wanted sex.
Right.
And felt ashamed that I wanted sex.
Right.
And maybe Jen Marie can talk about her experience around sexuality, but her experience was more towards withdrawal from sex.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted it. I was ashamed to want it.
Mm-hmm. And you try to suppress.
If we had it, I would then tend to withdraw after.
Oh.
And because the feelings of shame around it and
Mm-hmm.
worry that I've been imposing on Jen Marie and all those kinds of feelings. And so it left me in a really very challenging place around sexuality and personally. And there's been improvement, but maybe you can talk about it.
Yeah. What was your experience like?
Okay. So, I was raised by excellent parents,
Mm-hmm.
nurturing, wonderful. And they did talk to us about sex and sexuality a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And they were clear about the rules around dating,
Mm-hmm.
and they counseled us to refrain from, one-on-one dating attachments early on.
Uh-huh.
Group date is when you're 16,
Mm-hmm.
single date from 18 on,
Mm-hmm.
or when you feel like it after that. So they were clear about what the rules are, and that was good. I think that set me up with a good start. However, there was a distinct lack of education, and I was afraid to ask.
Okay.
So there's the teaching to bridle our passions, and that's good.
Yeah, that is good.
We want to save ourselves for our future marriage partner.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. But at the same time, it was this kind of white knuckled feeling of, okay, don't think about it. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. And then we work up to marriage, and now we're supposed to think about it. And now what? In preparing for the wedding day, the wedding night, I was afraid to ask anyone. I had a few conversations with a few female relatives, and it made me maybe even more scared than before.
Oh, no.
I mean,
some honeymoon horror stories.
But, and I read one book.
Okay.
What I often do when I have questions or a problem to solve, I read a book. That helps. That helps. Maybe a little more would have served me, but I didn't know how to ask.
Gotcha.
I wasn't supposed to think about it or talk about it.
Got it.
So it left me in a position of not knowing how to proceed forward, not knowing how to move forward.
Gotcha.
So I have one view, he has another view, very different ideas around sexuality. I'm not sure how to merge the two. I was afraid to even talk to him about sex.
Gotcha.
Till like recent years.
And I was too. I mean, it was a joint shame. Both of us, and it showed up different ways, but both of us did not feel okay wanting sex or liking sex.
Right.
Different aspects to it. Jen Marie shut down and withdrew and had a really hard time coming out to enjoy sex.
Just shy about it.
Well, it was more than shy. Like we talked about this later. There would be full on kind of trauma responses.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would have to, work through deep breathing and just relaxation. And it was super easy to derail sexuality
Mm-hmm.
um, for Jan Marie. And then on my side, it was super easy for me to detach and withdraw.
Mm-hmm.
That lets me feeling lonely. And like this wasn't the best friend partnership that I look forward to.
Right.
Lots of programming about marriage is hard. At church, marriage is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember one teacher say, marriage is hard at best. That did not make me feel very good. And yet we're encouraged to marry and save ourselves for marriage. But marriage is hard. So I felt like I was in this double bind. I felt like I can't win.
Right.
It's hard, but I'm supposed to want it. Like, where's the joy?
Mm-hmm.
And after we got married, pretty soon after we got married, I'm like, where's the joy in this?
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be good. Where's the good stuff?
Right.
Why is this not feeling very good? Why is this not best friendy? Like we were before we married, we went walking every night. Like, this is not best friendy. This is not awesome.
Mm-hmm.
This does not feel good.
Mm-hmm. Wow. How did you get through those really difficult times?
I went to read in more books,
Uh-huh.
podcasts,
Well,
and attended some telesummits.
that was years after, though.
Uh-huh.
We almost did.
Uh-huh.
We all stuck.
You just sucked it up and soldiered on, I guess.
And the council was have a date night every week.
Uh-huh.
So I would plan the date, budget for the date, find a sitter,
Uh-huh.
and say, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Uh-huh.
And then you'd be like, I don't want to go. I'm like,
Oh. Uh-huh.
okay, if you want to date me, come find me.
Oh, no.
We're supposed to be nurturing our relationship.
Right.
So that was frustrating. A few times I took us on romantic anniversary getaways that, although eventually we would like relax and have a good time with each other, together,
Mm-hmm.
it was a real fight. We'd be kind of in disagreement by the time we left late at night to drive where we were going. Like, he was in such resistance, it seemed. It felt like so much resistance to having a romantic getaway. Like, isn't this what he wanted?
Right. Why did
Thought this is what he wanted.
Uh-huh.
I'm feeling an urge to defend myself.
What was difficult about those times for you, Andrew?
Well, so Jenry and I have different views about how good or bad our sexual upbringings were for ourselves at some level.
Uh-huh.
I don't have very positive views of our upbringing throughout sexuality.
Uh-huh.
And part of that is because, despite my shame and despite my difficulties around sexuality and despite the impression that you might get that I was in resistance all the time,
Uh-huh.
I would put a lot of effort into intimacy and sexuality.
Uh-huh.
I care about being a gentle person. I care about being a good lover. I care about it.
Mm-hmm.
And do you mind if I get a little bit personal?
Okay.
I would spend hours working with Jenry, touching, caressing, holding, talking to, hours. This is not like, oh, my wife is slow. It takes us a half an hour.
Uh-huh.
I would spend hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then the smallest thing could derail it, or it would be over.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the
Or
right
as this sloppy.
Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so
And you'd get frustrated. Like,
yeah.
Uh-huh.
But it's not just like, to be clear, it's not like, oh, we haven't had sex in 3 days. I'm feeling frustrated. This was, we haven't really touched each other in weeks or months.
Gotcha.
And when I do put in effort, there's so much stress around sexuality for Jan Marie that it got to the point that it didn't feel worth it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you said, where's the fun? Where's the friendship? That was my experience. Where's the fun? Sex was not fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of effort.
Uh-huh.
And Jan Marie, in my experience, was very passive and withdrawn. And so if I put in a lot of effort, maybe it would be good for her, but then it would be over. And I would be wondering why I was doing this.
Gotcha.
And that sounds harsh. And I don't mean to be harsh. That's part of my frustration with how I feel like we were both set up to have so much trauma around this, that working through it we didn't know how to. We didn't. And my best efforts couldn't get anywhere if we couldn't figure that out. And her best efforts to reach me through date nights and other things couldn't get anywhere if I was feeling depressed about our marriage and discouraged and disconnected and like I was an awful person and why would she want to connect with me anyway? And
right.
There was, I'm a little surprised we hung on, actually.
So I should read books and listen to podcasts. And then I say, okay, this is what we need. Okay. So would you listen to this? And he didn't really want to. So, okay, how about just listen to this part of it? And maybe he would, and then come away.
Yeah,
I was arguing with it.
Come away more depressed.
What I was trying to say with it.
My experience of these podcasts is very different from hers. Because what I came away from very often was, guys, here's what you need to do better to make this work. Guys, here's why you shouldn't want sex very often. Here's why it's okay to not want sex. Here's why it's okay to not, like all these things that were building distance between us and enjoying sex together. And so my experience of it was podcasts telling me what I should be doing differently when I felt like I was already trying to do all of that stuff.
And it wasn't working.
It wasn't working.
Right.
Because like the issue that I felt like was, and I did for a long time, put it on Jen Marie. I was like, no matter what I do, if you don't like sex, it's not going to fix anything. And so I did over time get in my head this idea of I'm ready to go.
Ready to go, meaning, what do you mean?
Engage sexually and intimacy and stuff like that. But you've got something you need to fix. It's something I had in my head for a long time.
Gotcha. So you're doing this to each other, it looks like. Like Andrew's trying to fix Jan Marie in some roundabout way, and Jan Marie's trying to fix Andrew in some roundabout way.
I didn't realize that the message he was receiving was, I'm trying to fix you.
I see.
That's not what I intended at all. It was having him listen to a thing or read a thing. It was meant to be a springboard for discussion, so we could begin to talk about that thing, that area, that aspect. And it ended up in arguments.
Gotcha. Which causes more avoidance around the topic.
More and more things. I read more books. I went to a conference even, came home like feeling exhilarated and like ready to try again. And he seemed to be absent, not showing up, in my opinion, in my feeling, in my...
That's interesting because that's my experience of that was different. Because she came back and was initially engaged sexually, and I thought, okay, this might go someplace. Okay. And then when it came to stepping beyond the spaces where she had already been comfortable, it felt like there wasn't progress. And so I went back to that same pattern of, well, I guess we're just back to the way we are, the way things were. I guess nothing's going to change. And it's Jen Marie's fault. And I had that in my head. And I recognize there are some issues with that perspective, but that's what I was running with. I was trying not to, but it is what I was running with.
So tell me about how things started to turn around. Was there a moment or a conversation you had or a hinge point or something where things started to turn around and kind of go in a better direction for the two of you?
In March of 2021, I saw advertised a marriage retreat. It happened to be on our anniversary.
Awesome.
2022?
2022.
2022. Yes, you're right. And so I suggested it.
So
I invited him to come. Like, do you really want to? Like,
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to get to the final day of packing and
Him backing out.
trip and have him not want to come.
Right.
So we talked about it a little bit. Like, are you game? Are you really game?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you rewind a little bit, I don't want to go into too much detail, but we managed to almost wreck our marriage with each other over the last few years.
Uh-huh.
But parts of
kind of in the way of me needing emotional fulfillment and looking outside of the marriage for that in different ways.
I see. Mm-hmm.
So,
healthy ways or unhealthy ways?
Medium.
Okay.
Like, I think it's
little bit
started
of
off healthy, but then
Uh-huh.
it went towards greater unhappiness inside my marriage, wishing I had something else.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a dead end.
Just this
I didn't
discontent.
want to break up my marriage,
Mm-hmm.
but it felt so hard. It felt so like I had such a need for emotional connection, which I wasn't getting in my marriage. So I was thinking, okay, well, what can I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I did. I would pray. I would, okay, how can I get this need satisfied that was a real need that was not going to be denied anymore?
Mm-hmm.
I needed emotional connection and fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, our marriage is difficult, but we can work with this. But we'll stay with it and just see how we can do this in good ways. I mean, there's going to be a solution to this problem somewhere, somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you mind if I share my theory?
okay.
So my running theory, as I started to watch what was happening, I looked at it over time and I thought, Jan Marie likes men and likes sex. She has sex drive. She likes this stuff. And so in my head, this is actually a really positive thing.
It was like
we're not managing it the best at the moment, but this is a really good thing. But there was so much stress around actual physical intimacy that I was too dangerous. I was too threatening because she could actually have sex with me.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas connecting with other people with whom she was not about to have sex because that was her commitment and she was being connected and staying committed to the marriage, that gave a space to feel good, but without the threat of actual
engagement. So she can flirt with the idea and kind of still be on her own home turf, so to speak.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. That's a good realization.
Did you want to say something? Which this is an interesting thing to look at because I'm looking at her and, she says she saw the marriage conference and was double checking with me and things like that. But at this point I had a realization of she needs adventure. That's what she needs in her marriage at some level, whatever adventure is for this month or this year, she does need feeling of adventure. And so, let's do it. I just jumped in. At the time I was smart enough to say, yes, I'm shy about meeting people. Yes, I get really nervous about that. But yeah, you need adventure. I want to be there with you on that adventure. Let's do this. And so we signed up. And optimistic or not, I don't know. I don't know what I was feeling at the time other than, hey, maybe this is good. Let's have an adventure together. Let's try it.
Gotcha.
And so we'd both been working through, there's another thing I want to bring up that Jan Marie did differently. But Jan Marie has gotten really good at listening in spaces where before she might have been defensive.
Okay. That's a super important skill to have in a marriage.
And I've been trying to work on it too. I hope I'm doing well. But Jan Marie really over the last 3-4 years made huge effort in that area, got so much better at it. And so, that's to the side of other things we're doing and struggling with and trying to raise 5 kids and everything that related to that. But it changed the nature of our conversations And so when she invited me to do this, I had more optimism and more hope than I would have had before, because Jan Marie was making changes in our marriage in a positive way. And I thought, okay, maybe there's a shot here. I will also try.
Uh-huh.
I am not going to give up. I will also step back in and get going again, see what we can do.
Right.
So that was big.
So it's your anniversary. You arrive at the retreat. What are some of the big ahas that happened to the two of you?
Do you want the part where we're slightly detached, or the part where we fight, or the part where we get back together?
All of it. It sounds like creation, fall, and then atonement at the end. Uh-huh.
We listened to the presentations and had discussions in between the sessions.
And you're starting out with all the talks about conflict resolution.
Was that hard to hear?
Not.
Yeah. There was one moment that was a catalyst that the person presenting invited us to write down some of the areas of conflict. And there was a thing that I had wanted to bring up and clear, and that was a vulnerable point. And I questioned whether to even bring it up at all.
Right.
It would bring up conflict. It would bring up difficult emotions.
It did.
I wrote it down.
It did.
And I was gonna not even speak of it, but he read it over my shoulder.
I didn't need. Honest to goodness.
He read it over my shoulder.
Just glance.
I'm like, okay, we're doing this. We're doing it.
Oh yeah.
We after the session, we went back to our cabin and sat with some very difficult emotions. And we just had to sit with it. We had to talk about it, talk through it. And
I don't know if at this point or not we had the conversation about the presentation about couples being within half a step of each other in terms of sex.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if we'd had that at this point or not, but it feels like we had. And we'd had the discussion about, where do you want to be? Do you want to be more transactional and rule-based, or do you want to engage with people in more of a sense of what you want to create in the world and who you want to be? So we'd had presentations about that stuff. And I'm sitting here with these feelings and saying, I feel like going home. If we drive home now, we could get home in time to go to bed.
Yes.
It's only 3 hours. We could do it. Let's go. And somewhere in all this, I started thinking, am I really that far ahead of Jan Marie? Is this really a situation where she has a problem and she needs to fix it? And I looked at that and I thought, I don't think so. I think I don't know how to have a sexual relationship in a healthy way. I don't think I know how to do that. The ways that Jan Marie hurt me may look different from the ways that I hurt her. But I don't think I'm someplace far out in front, just waiting for her to catch up. I think I have opportunity to do something different than I was. And I mean, the news she shared was really old news in some senses. And I just needed to eat it, chew it up, process it, spit it out, whatever, just take the time and it gave me a chance to kind of reset and say, okay, sure. Do I honestly care about where we were a year ago, 2 years ago? Do I care about that, or do I care more about opportunity? Because Jan Marie said something to me which I felt frustrated about at the time, stuck in my head, which was no one ever taught me about this stuff. And I thought 22 years of marriage, you've had time to figure out how to have sex and to want to touch a guy and stuff like that. We've had time, right? And so once again, I'm in my place of like, I'm okay. How long until you catch up?
Yes.
And she said, I need someone to invite me. I need someone to show me. Maybe we could explore this together.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, my immediate reaction to most thoughts is no. But I've also learned enough from Jen Marie to shut up most of the time and think about things before I make any kind of final decision. And I started to think about it, and I thought, what do I want out of this? Where do I want to go with this? My brother-in-law is an economist, and he says people don't often think about it. They think, I don't want this thing. But that's not a choice. Okay, what do you? You're always choosing something else. If you don't choose that. And so if I want out of this marriage, what do I want instead? And I don't have something that I want more than this.
Right.
And so when Jan Marie said, now I'm getting emotional. When Jan Marie said, I need someone to go with me and explore with me.
In all the books I read, there wasn't a lot on male sexuality. It was mostly female based, which is good, but also no one ever talked to me about that. Man's penis should not be looked at, thought about, or touched.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
I didn't have any real guidance on that.
Gotcha.
I was afraid to touch him.
And it also cuts to part of Andrew's vulnerability too, like even as a teenager, and a shame from just such a. So this is really could be a powder keg moment.
Well, and the thing is, my insecurities hit Jan Marie right where it hurt her the most.
Yes.
Her insecurities hit me right where it hurt me the most.
Yes.
Neither of us were trying to be unkind. Neither of us were trying to, but her fear of my sexuality reinforced my intense shame of my sexuality.
And you tried to cover it up by making it all Jan Marie's fault.
And my withdrawal reinforced her feelings of rejection and like she's not going to be loved and she's not going to be cared about. And so we managed really unintentionally to just stick knives exactly where they would do the most damage. And it wasn't, she's not unkind. This was not on purpose. This was not intentional. It was a really bad combination.
Right.
And so stepping out of that to a place where she's saying, hey, go with me, and giving me the chance to say, okay, let me rewrite in my head what our marriage has been about. I don't, do you want me to tell about the movie? Do you want to add something before I do?
Tell about the movie.
Okay.
We had some breakthrough moments around during the movie, the final event of the retreat.
So we did have some fun Friday night, but we were still figuring things out.
Right.
And we we did the dancing and I was still stressed. And, the dancing was great, by the way. It's
that was a good thing.
You two are great dancers. It was fun to watch.
But we were watching a movie about time that you show. No, I'm definitely going to cry. And he's gone
through
spoilers for the movie. He's gone through all this life and he is thinking about the ability to go back and change things. And here I am, 44 years old. I put half of my life into this marriage and I'm coming into this retreat feeling like maybe I wasted this 22 years. Maybe this was all a bad idea. It's not going to change. I can stay in and be lonely, or I can leave and mess up everybody's lives, or, I don't have good options. It's feeling. And I am listening to Ben Folds start to sing about how he doesn't get many things right the first time. And I thought, yeah, okay, that's me. Maybe that's us. And then he sings, but about how all the wrong turns and stumbles and falls brought me here. And I had a moment of thinking, I don't want to be anywhere else. I do love him. And I'm grateful for Jan Marie, and I'm grateful for all of the wrong turns and stumbles and falls that brought us here and made me who I am, because I like who I am. I like who I am more regularly. I don't want to be somebody else. And I would be lying if I said that Jan Marie was not a big part of that. So yeah, I don't think I'm 5 steps ahead or 10 steps ahead. I don't think I've wasted 22 years. I think we have a cool opportunity to try something new, do more exploring together, and more of the good stuff. That don't mean just sex, but sex matters as well.
Yes.
More of the good stuff together, more of Jan Marie's going away this weekend, and I am so excited to be unhappy while she's gone. I am so excited by this. I am so excited to not be thinking, oh, thank goodness I have some free time. I'm so excited to be thinking, this sucks. I wish she were here. That's so exciting to me.
That's good. How about you, Jan Marie?
I appreciated in the movie how it highlighted living into each moment. Sorry about the spoilers, but kind of the takeaway message for me was to enjoy each moment or to live it into its fullest, whether it's a hard moment or a triumphant moment or whatever it is, like live into it, live into it. He got to a place where he didn't need to go back in time anymore to redo a thing. I had had so many moments of my own where I wished I had done a different thing. I wished I'd had that power, the exact power that he had, something different, to make a different choice. He got to where he realized what the trade-offs might be and became content with his life exactly the way it was. He wouldn't do anything different. So I've had my own coming around to that as well. I wouldn't do anything different.
That is so good.
In the right place. Right now, right here, with all the struggles, being a hot mess.
Emphasis on the hot.
That's a good one. That was good. As we wrap up our conversation, do you have any advice for another couple who's probably going through similar things that you've been going through? What would you tell them? Besides go to the retreat.
Asking the questions. Like, keep asking the questions. Be brave to ask the things that seem scary and to go through the things that seem scary. The scary thing is where your breakthrough is.
Yes.
I'm glad that we were on a retreat when we had the chance to bring up the scary things, the hard things, with that kind of support. When he was saying, let's just go home. Let's go home. And like, I'm in so much dread. Like, okay, what should we do? What can I do? Like, should we talk to one of these amazing coaches here? Like, what do we do?
Right.
It's going to fall out. It's going to fall in. It's going to rise up, it's going to drop out. Something's going to happen. Just watch it happen.
That's good. Any last words, Andrew?
Yeah, probably a lot. I'm never going to know if it's right for other people to hang in there when something seems hard. I'm never going to know. All the success stories you hear are success stories. We hear them because it worked. And maybe for some people, they tried the same things, they tried to do the same things, and it didn't work for whatever reason. So I can't know what's right for other people who are feeling detached or feeling like, hey, 22 years is a long time to try to be patient. We're in that place of like, I've been trying for a long time. And Jen-Marie was also at multiple points in our marriage in that place of I've been trying for a long time. When's it going to change? So I don't know what to recommend to other people who are struggling. It's taking a while, but I do know that right now life feels good. And we came back from the marriage retreat and we're getting towards the end of the week. And I was thinking, oh, we're both busy and I don't feel as connected and I don't want to do this podcast with Dan and feel disconnected. And
our breakthrough. We had a breakthrough. Now where
to go? And I brought that up with Jen-Marie. And we talked and we communicated and we connected and we took time. And that is good. It feels good. It feels nice to be in that place of not being as afraid to say things and not being as afraid to hear things. And yeah, we went through some really hard stuff throughout our marriage that we sat with well or not well. But we've gotten better at it. And maybe those 22 years, maybe those 22 years were what I needed to learn how to do this well enough to connect with this person that I love. Maybe I'm not 5 steps ahead. Maybe I needed all this time to get to a place where I could be open, where I could listen, where I could be a little less ashamed and a little less afraid. And the two of us together could.
We've had a few of the hard corners chipped off and
smoothed out.
Yeah.
Yes. That's so good. You two are such a lovely couple. And thank you for your courage to share these things today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of Get Your Marriage On. And if you did, we would love it if you would take a few seconds to give us a rating on iTunes and to share the show with your friends. They'll thank you for life. Once you've done that, you can head over to getyourmarriageon.com for more resources about today's topic and to download our amazing marriage apps. Now go get your marriage on.